Hey there YouTube fans, AC Productions here, and today is a super exciting day. We finally get to install the R1 tail cover onto the R3. So first things first, let's get started with the tools on what you're going to need to remove your stock tail. So we'll go over to this side. You're going to need a small, I guess a little stubby star head Phillips screwdriver. A 4mm regular Allen key is good. If not, if you have one of these small bits so at a 4mm, you need a handle for that. And then we're going to need a ratchet with an 8mm socket. And then you're also going to need a needle nose pliers. You're also going to need a 10mm socket. And then also don't forget your little Ziploc bag. That way you could put all the little screws and pieces that we're going to be taking off from the back of the bike and put them right here. Then that way you can close it. And if you happen to drop the bag, your screws are not going to fall all over the floor. And therefore you also won't lose any. And then other thing you're going to need is you're going to need a longer cable for your rear seat cover. So if your one is this is a Yamaha part, and the part number is right here. That's going to be the other part that you're going to need for the R1 tail cover. Alright, so let's get over to the bike and let's start taking things apart. And then also forgot to mention you're going to need your Yamaha key, so we have to remove the rear passenger seat. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's get started with that. So first things first, we're going to have to remove the rear passenger seat. So let's grab our key and open that up. Go ahead and put this off to the side. After that, next we're going to have to do is remove this cover here. That's going to be two 4mm Allen key screws. So one here, one over here. And then after that, we are going to remove these 4 screws here. Okay, so first what you're going to do is you're going to remove these 2 screws first. Once you remove it, you're going to slide the cover in that way. Okay, once you get to this part. All right, now that we got all these pieces out, now let's go ahead and remove this little panel right here. Now to do that, all you're going to do is just put light pressure on this plastic here, push it out, and then pull it out like so. And then same thing on this side, going to push it forward like out like that. And okay, so let's go ahead and remove that piece, and we're going to put it off to the side for now. All right, so next what we're going to do is we're going to remove our seat, and that's going to be with the 8mm ratchet socket. So let's go ahead and remove those 2 screws. So there's one right here and one over there. All right, once you remove the 2 screws, you can go ahead and lift out your seat and put that off to the side. All right, so this is how your bike should look like, all open right over here. All right, so now let me just show you one thing that if you noticed on the rear tail is going to be, as you notice that this centerpiece has a hole in it. Now if you notice that on our original centerpiece, which is this piece here, there is no hole. That means that we have to relocate our lock that opens up the rear passenger seat. We have to relocate it to the center. So no longer will it be on the side, it's going to be on the center. And the reason it's not on the side on the new R1 tail is because if you look at the design, there is no hole here because of the little wing that it has. So they didn't put a hole here, so they just kind of relocated the lock to be here in the center. So we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to have to find a way to mount it. So hopefully with some luck we're able to do that. Maybe that's why they made the little hole here, is what I'm guessing, to put a nut through here to hold the bracket that holds the locking mechanism right here. That's my guess right now, but we won't know that until we actually put the tail on the bike. Okay, next, now that we've already removed all this stuff over here, now we're going to go from the underneath side of the bike, and we're going to go ahead and remove these little plastic screws. So there's one here, there is one right there, and one right there, and it's going to be the same thing on the other side. They're both on the same distances on both sides, as you can see. So let's go ahead and remove those pieces. Okay, next we're going to remove these 2 plastic screws. There's one here on this side and then one on that side. After removing those 2 screws, if you look inside here in the back, there's going to be a screw here on this side, and it's going to be the same thing on the other side, and that screw. So you're going to remove those 2 screws also. After those, then we're going to remove this one here, another Phillips plastic one here on this side, and then same thing on this one. Remove those 2. Okay, next we're going to be removing this. Actually, we're going to have to remove this triangle piece to get to the screw on the inside of this. So if you look in here, that this screw is actually holding this plastic part in place. So to make things easier, just to be on the safe side, I think there is another bolt over here on this side. So on both sides, you have to remove the triangle piece on this side and the triangle piece on that side. It's a 4mm Allen key, which is going to be this screw here and the screw over here. Okay, after you're done removing the triangle pieces on both sides, as you can see, there's going to be a bolt here, and that's a 10mm size bolt. So go ahead and remove it on this side and also on that side. to remove those 2 bolts. Okay, and lastly, I'm going to remove this plastic piece, which is just slides up and out. It should just slide out. Oh, there we go. So go ahead and remove that and put that off to the side. All right, so I think that pretty much covers all the screws that we needed to remove. Now next is going to be actually removing the back tail cover off of the bike. Now it should come off pretty easy, but let's go ahead and check it out. All right, so pull it off from the side here on this side. It came off, and there we go on this side. And then all you have to do is just, actually before I forget guys, let me show you this extra part. Now the extra part I'm referring to is my secondary brake lights. If you also did my video of the secondary brake lights, you're actually gonna have to remove the strip off of the cover because right now it's still connected, obviously, as you can see. So if you did do this option as well, so just go ahead and if you want to reuse this, I'm planning to actually reuse my secondary brake light just because it does come in handy, especially when you're riding at night, to let drivers know behind you that you're going to come to a stop. For me, riding in the city, it definitely helps a lot. Also, if you ride in the country too, that also helps a lot to let drivers from far away know that there's a motorcycle in front of them. If you did not do this option and you don't have nothing here, then you could just go ahead and remove the whole plastic piece off of the bike. Now when you start removing the side pieces, you're going to notice that it might be a little difficult to remove. It's just because if you look inside here, there's going to be a right around there, a little plastic piece that's actually holding your tail light, and it's on both sides. Just there it is. Okay, so right there with the arrow, as you can see, there's the peg that I'm talking about. Just go ahead and with your finger try to push that part out as you're removing the plastic pieces. And when you're doing so, just be careful on removing it. You definitely don't want to be breaking any tabs, just in case you ever wanted to put your stock fairing back on, or if you're planning to sell the bike and you don't want to sell it with the aftermarket tail section, and you'll be able to put the stock tail section back on. Okay, now that I got the right side off, now it's time to remove the left side. And I noticed that I wasn't able to get it as off as easy as the other side, and the reason is because on the inside I forgot that we do have the locking mechanism for the rear tail seat. So we have to go ahead and remove this screw right here, and then we should be able to take out this side. So besides that screw that was up here that I just finished removing, there's also a second screw which is right over here. And with the plastic, as you could see, there's the other screw that you need to remove. Okay, now that we got both sides removed, this is how your tail end should look like. Pretty much bare bones except for your rear tail light. Looks actually really stealthy. All right, and really naked. All right, so here is our locking mechanism. And I was looking at it to see if it would even reach to that section. But as soon as we put our rear tail end, we'll see if we could actually get it to extend there or whatnot. So we'll soon find out on that department. All right, so now for the moment that we've been waiting for, let's go ahead and let's grab our tail section and let's go ahead and put it on the back of the bike. But before we do that, we actually need to remove this bottom shipping brace. And while we're at it, I think we're also going to remove this, just so that way it'll give us a little bit more flexibility on actually maneuvering it on the bike to get it to fit. So let's go ahead and remove these 4 Phillips head screws. So these two, and then on the bottom of this is also a Phillips head screw also. So once you remove this brace piece, you're not going to need that brace piece, so you don't have to worry about putting that piece back. Okay, once you remove all 4 screws, you can go ahead and take this out carefully. Okay, oh, that's cool. There's like a little connecting bridge here. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to put this off to the side. Next would be this bottom brace. Okay, now that we moved the bottom brace, we don't need that part anymore. Now let's go ahead and let's start putting this onto the bike. Now note, just be careful when putting this on that bike. Even though it does feel like a really solid construction, you still want to be careful on maneuvering this on the bike. So as we're going to put it on, we're going to start from the back and then slide it in place. And put the camera on the tripod so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so now we're going to put the rear tail section onto the bike, and we're going to start from the back. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start from the back over here, and just be careful as you're installing this piece on not to break it. So we're going to go ahead and put our lock over here. Let me see if I'm able to even remove our fuse box here. Okay, I was able to figure out how to get the little fuse box out. If you notice right there's a little tab. You may want to stick either a flathead screwdriver and then just push the little tab in, and then the little box will come out. Once you push that tab in, here you go, the box finally comes out, and then we could try to move this fuse box probably in. That way we could kind of slide our tail section a little bit more easier once we get it in there, and then we could finally put our little fuse box back on. All right, so now for part 2, or the second try of our fitting our tail section in. Don't worry about these cables. These cables you may not have on your bike. These cables are just the ones that are running from my power commander to the fuse box. All right, so now let's grab our piece again, and again we're going to slide it in from the back, At the same time, like I said, guys, you're gonna be grabbing it from the bottom here and then pulling it out very lightly. Don't do it a lot, because you can have a chance of cracking this in half, and you definitely don't want that. All right, so let's go ahead and slide it in there, being careful at the same time of doing this. Let's see. Yeah. All right, got it over that one. All right, so far it's going well. At the same time, let's see if we could try to keep that there. Okay, actually I wasn't paying attention to this back end, so let me back it up a little bit, make sure. Okay, now it's already up there, it's good there. And let's keep working it until we finally get it seated correctly. You want to make sure that these two hole pieces are going to match up with your tail light over here. So let's keep going until we match it up there. And then also we want to make sure that we match these tabs with the bolts that we had taken out earlier, those 10mm bolts. So that's what we're doing right now. Okay, so far it's working out well. Let me see if I can move this lock up. Let's see. So you may come across this problem too, so it's trying to move the lock out of the way so we can actually get it. Okay, after I did that, it finally fits a bit better. Alright, making sure for the fitment of the tail light, it's looking good back there. I need to push it forward just a little bit more to try to get it seated good. Alright, some cables here that are... Gotta move this too. It's part of my battery tender. And then you want to make sure that these holes also match up. And it's almost there. We're almost there, guys. Okay, it's almost right there. Make sure that the bottom, as you're doing it, make sure you're checking the bottom for fitment, of course. Making sure that everything's fitting right. And it looks like we may have an issue with the fuse box, just because there is no more space there for me to actually put the fuse box back. So we may have an issue there with the fuse box. Alright, so it looks like it's fitting really well with the taillight. The holes are not quite aligning correctly with the taillight. I will show you that in a minute. Then a little bit over here on these sides. Lining up pretty well there. For the most part, it's kind of lining up here just because it's not really lining up too much. I mean, it's because we have some cables that are kind of protruding out and pushing the cover, but I don't think that should be an issue. Alright, so now after you looked at my head so many times, now let me show you the details. Alright, so now here's the overall. Now let's start from the back actually. And on the back, you can see it actually lines up really well. So everything's looking good there. When you move over to the bottom here, it looks like the holes are sort of matching up, as much as I can see. We'll do a more final look once we get to this part, when I really investigate. As far as the tail light section is concerned, I'll try to see if I could push this a little bit more forward to make the holes match up, but right now they're not quite matching up. They are a little bit. We may have to just drill out the hole just a little bit bigger just to get them to go in there, but it's not too bad misaligned. As you can see right there and there. Next would be right over here. The hole is also almost aligned, but not quite. So like I said, I'm going to try to push the plastic just a little bit more. If I can't, we're going to have to drill out the hole on this side here. And it looks like the same over here. As you can see, the hole's not quite matching up there. Let's go for the sides over here. On this one, it looks like the hole is also off just a little bit. And I'm sure it's probably the same for the other side. Let's go ahead and check that. Also, it looks like it's off just a little bit. And there's some shavings there, but it looks like it's off just a little bit. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and see if I can try to push the cover just in this way, just a little bit more to get it to really sit right. If I can't, then I will show you that we're going to have to like kind of just make those holes just a little bit bigger. It's not way crazy off. Alright, so let me go ahead and do that. Alright guys, unfortunately that's it's not able to go any further. So that's going to be as further as it goes. So we are going to have to find a way way to we're just gonna have to make these holes just a little bit bigger to accommodate the location of the brackets. Another thing I noticed and found out is that since we're not able to put our fuse box back into the location where we originally had it, we need to cut this zip tie, and then we're gonna be I'm gonna pull this out, and we're gonna have to relocate our fuse box. And I think I'm just gonna put it like right around this area, not to be too far off. Okay, so don't forget, now we need to cut. We already go ahead and cut that zip tie that was here. I already did that. So next we're going to do is we're going to relocate our fuse box. So go ahead and move the side covering very lightly, not with not too much force, just enough so you can get the cable over this area. And then once you get it out, all right, so it looks like there's some pieces taped from the factory onto the main fuse box cable here. I'm gonna go ahead and cut the electrical tape off and see if I could actually move some of those pieces out of the way. Alright guys, after trying to see what I could do with the fuse box, it looks like I'm gonna have to relocate the fuse box. If you have these wires connected, you're gonna have to disconnect these wires. Now these wires are for my power commander. If you have a power commander, you're gonna have to also remove this cable. And then this one I believe is for my GPS system. These are the two cables I need to remove. You may not have those cables on your bike. Here you may just have just the fuse box itself. And then also I just unwrapped the electrical tape that were on these, and they look to be like sensors. I'm not sure what they're for. As you can see, it has like a little plus. I think it might be a resistor in there. So on some bikes, they have resistors that have to be a certain way, because if they're flipped upside down, it makes the bike not start. So I'm gonna kind of get that. I'm gonna kind of guess that what these are. And there's 3 of them, and they were kind of taped obviously onto the fuse box cabling. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap it with fresh new electrical tape, and then I'm just gonna zip tie them to the frame of the bike so they're kind of in the same position they were. Besides that, we're gonna have to relocate our fuse box, and the only way to do so will be to grab the fuse box. And what I'm gonna do, because I kind of still want it in the general area of over here, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull it through here and try to see if I can route it through here, up through here. But like I said, I think there's gonna be an issue with fitment, just because now there is nothing to secure our little fuse box in place. So it's gonna be kind of like loose. But if I'm able to fit it there, it shouldn't be a problem with the seat, because the bracket is a little bit higher than what this is. So I'm gonna go ahead and try that method and see if I can get that to work. And don't forget guys, if you have the same problem, you're gonna have the same problem also. So don't forget to retape these and then just zip tie it to the frame of the bike, because you want to make sure that those sensors are in the same on these wires. So there's 3 of them. There's one here, and the other one kind of fell down there, which is also right there. So right now I have the fuse box right in between here, so it's right over there. Now to get it through this area so I could not have that big fat cable, this fat cable over the frame, is I wanted to tuck it here so it could be underneath. In order for me to do that, as you can see, it's right there, and the plastic is in my way. So, and what you're gonna have to do is remove the strap, and all you need to do is just grab your pliers and then push the strap this way and up and out, and the thing will come out. So let me show you that right now. So just grab your pliers, grab the bracket there. Proving a little difficult because I'm doing it with one hand, but you get the idea. And then that will release the strap for the battery. All right, so to remove the bolts for the battery, it's going to be an 8mm socket to remove both of these. Once you do that, then the next thing will be to remove the battery completely, which will allow this side piece, the side plastic, to give a little bit more flex and push it in so you can get the box through. Okay, once you remove the screws and you put your electrical tape on the terminals, now you're going to go ahead and remove the battery out of its spot. So go ahead and just remove it. And it comes with this foam, I think, or if I just leave the foam in place, just take the battery out. Okay, so go ahead and remove the battery, put that off to the side, and now we should have the flexibility of actually moving this plastic a little bit better to get our fuse box through. Okay, there we go. Alright, so be careful on the other end over there. Alright, much better. Alright, so let's see. So now that we have our cable here, I'm gonna just put it pretty much where I'm thinking that where it's going to go, right there. I'm gonna go ahead and put the seat on there and make sure that it's not bothering or disturbing anything, and I'm able to actually secure the seat down. Okay, now we have our seat. Let's go ahead and put that on there and make sure everything's okay. Alright, so right off the bat it does have a little bit of a gap, but if you push down on it, I don't think it's gonna be hurting anything. And from this side I could see that the battery or the fuse box is actually on it, but I think when I press down on it, it doesn't really do any damage to the fuse fuse box. So I think we should be okay. It should be fine. I mean, I don't see it causing any damage on the bike, but let me show you what I was looking at. All right, so if you see that bolt right there, that's actually heading down on the fuse box. So when we put the seat down, all the way down to where we're going to be tightening, as you can see on this side. So as I press it, it doesn't really have that much more to go when it presses. It's just giving a little bit of tension. Like I said, guys, I don't think it's actually going to be causing any harm. I don't think it's damaging the box. And then once I get it really settled in, I think it'll be fine. So far it's looking good. I don't see any issues. Now that I don't see any issues, now I'm going to go ahead and remove the seat, and then I'm going to go ahead and secure those parts, these guys. I'm going to go ahead and put the electrical tape back on, and then I'm going to go ahead and secure it to the frame of the bike facing the way they were at the beginning. Okay, I just finished doing those sensors or whatever those resistors were. Put them in the same kind of fashion that they were before. So this time I secured them up on the frame. So as you can see, here's the long one, then the medium one's kind of underneath that one, and then the small one's right here, and I try to put them in that upward direction. Then I also put the electrical tape over them how they were before. So I just put the fresh electrical tape over that. Okay, so now next what we're going to do is we are going to grab our fuse box, which is right here. Right now, actually, we're just going to put it off to the side right now. I'll go ahead and put and install our battery back in its place. Alright guys, I think I got it pretty well. The battery's already back in, and I was able to fit the fuse a little bit better in now that everything was in place. I also took the wire right over here alongside the edge, and then I also put a zip tie to hold it away from everything else. And then to push the fuse box just a little bit in more, I noticed that the negative cable was kind of in the way. So all I did was move the negative cable a little bit further towards this way, and then I was able to push the fuse box in more. So now we should have no issues with the rear seat and that bolt. Maybe the bolt may touch just a little bit, but there is still plenty of space underneath the fuse box if it needs to compress a little bit more. So I would say if this is the bottom of where the frame is, the fuse box is pretty much up this much. So when it presses down with that bolt, it should be flush on the bottom end. So far everything is looking good here. Everything's already connected here. I was able to just make it just a little bit more neater. So that's a good thing when you're taking things apart. You're able to redo the cables a little bit better. Now this is just for my battery tender. If you happen to have that, you can have this off to the side. If you don't, then don't worry about it. All right, so everything is looking good there. Now next what we're gonna do is start putting our screws into their corresponding areas. So let's actually first get started with the bolts that go here, and remember those were the 10mm screws that go there. So let's go ahead and do those. Okay, now that I have the bolt in, I just wanted to tell you that once you get the bolt going, it actually lines up pretty well. It's the hole's going to get a little bit bigger just to accommodate the bolt, but that's okay. And also I just wanted to let you know that you see that the bolt is not actually flush all the way here. Now the reason is that you need to do this too, is you just got to be mindful, because this piece is actually going to hit the frame, and if you actually bolt this all the way through, this can crack. So just make sure that when you're tightening down the bolt, be mindful as this gets closer to the frame, that's where you want to stop. So on this part, just stop and it's okay. It's actually securely on there. And then the same thing for the other side. On the other side, actually I was able to get it almost all the way, but not completely, because obviously this part was starting to hit the frame. So just get close. Don't hit the frame all the way, just get close enough, and then that's good enough. Okay, so now that we got those parts in, now next we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put the screws that go over here. I forgot to mention that the screws that go over here, don't forget these were the plastic ones. These little plastic ones, the little plastic clip style kind. So to put them in there, just make sure that this part is popped up, and then once you stick it in there, just go ahead and push this down and it'll lock it in place. I just wanted to also show you a tool that I'm finding pretty useful on making the holes just a little bit bigger. It is going to be this. This one's actually made for RC cars, and this is called a body reamer. So if you open it, it looks like this. It has a tapered to make the holes. So it has a sharp point, and then what I'm doing is I'm putting it into the hole over here, and then I'm just going ahead and turning it, making the hole just a little bit bigger so I could accommodate those screws. And it's a good alternative if you don't want to use an electric drill, because with the electric drill you have potential of actually doing a little bit of damage because it's a power tool. So having something like this where you could hand do it, it's a lot better. I'll have a link in the description below on where I purchased this one from. Okay, now that we got our two screws there, mind you that it did take me a little time to make the hole a little bit bigger. It got a little tedious, but it's already in there now. Alright guys, so since there is nothing in this hole for our screw to actually attach into. Like with the other one, there was actually a little metal tab that the screw was able to go to, because as you can see, this is the part that would go there and the screw would go here and it should attach to this. But since there's no threading in there, there's nothing for it to attach to. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna make this hole just a little bit bigger because I'm gonna install this nut. So this nut's gonna go inside here and I'm gonna put JB Weld, hold it in place inside. So once the JB Weld has dried, we'll have a threaded hole there for our screw to grab onto when we put our triangle piece. So let's go ahead and let's get started on making the hole bigger so we could install our nut inside. And now the size of drill that we're going to be using to make the hole bigger is going to be a 5/16. That's what we're going to be using to make the hole. Okay, now that we've made our hole, you want to just keep on drilling just a little bit up and down, left and right, just to make the hole just a little bit bigger. Then the reason I chose that instead of getting a bigger one, because we don't want the bolt to be all loose in there. So I just grabbed just a little bit smaller and then just, you know, use the drill. I'll show you in a second. So I was just using the drill and going, you know, just kind of opening up the hole just a little bit, not that much. Here is the nut, and now if we were to press it in just a little bit, as you could see, it's going to look like that. So when we put the epoxy of JB Weld, it's going to hold this nut in place, and therefore we'll have our screw. And when we put our triangle piece, it's going to have a place for it to grab and be able to secure our piece in place. So I'm just going to thread it in a little bit so we can pull the nut out, and I'm going to go ahead and put some JB Weld on each side of the nut, and then I'm going to go ahead and stick it back in there and let it dry. So to get the JB Weld going, just grab a piece of cardboard or anything that you have that you're not going to be using, and I'm just going to grab this piece of metal that I have laying around. We're going to go ahead and grab our JB Weld. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead, and we don't need that much, so just like a small dab of the steel. All right, there you go. I think that's about all we need for that. And then next is going to be the hardener, and then you just want to make sure as much steel you put, you want to put that much hardener also. If you put any more hardener than steel, it's gonna get real hard pretty quick. So we want to make sure it's just 50-50 on the mixture. So let's go ahead and grab something to stir it with, and just keep on stirring it until it turns into like a dark grayish color. Okay, now that you got that dark grayish color, we're gonna go ahead, and I usually like to use a small screwdriver because it has a flat side and I'll be able to apply it. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna put a little bit on each surface side of the bolt. So as you can see, I'm just going to put a little bit on each part of the surface of the nut on here. And then once I have it on all the sides, I'm going to go ahead and put it back onto the hole that we just made and put it inside. And then I'm going to unscrew it and then let it dry inside the fairing piece. Alright, so as you can see, I already put it on all sides of the nut. Now let's go ahead to the bike and let's install it inside. Alright, so that's the hole we just made. And then here is our bolt with all of the JB Weld. So we're going to go ahead and put it inside, and you want to give it a good firm press to make sure it sticks inside. Like I said, you want to make sure that you make the hole big enough for it to get in there, but also be snug, because you don't want it slopping around in there. You don't want it to be loose. Alright, so now that we got it nice and firm in there, go ahead and be careful on unscrewing your screw. There we go. Alright, so now we have a nice threaded nut in there. So once that dries, this will have a place for it to go when we put our triangle piece and be on there tightly. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. Not really going to show you that side. It's pretty much the same thing we just did on this side. So just go ahead and do that and then let it dry. I would say at least give it a full day's worth, pretty much overnight. Let it dry overnight for sure, to just really make sure that it's in there securely. Once it's dry, then you can go ahead and put your triangle piece, and then you'll be able to tighten it down. Alright, so through the magic of video editing, it's already been a whole day and that thing is already set. So now we could go ahead and we could go and install our triangle piece back on. So to remove the lock, you have to remove these two bolts. It's a 10mm. Now once you remove the two bolts, you can go ahead and just push down on the lock. Just make sure that you have your hand underneath, because you definitely don't want to be losing any bolts in this department. Let me actually remove this. If you're wondering what this is my Bluetooth controller for my LED kit. Alright, now that I got the locking mechanism off, as you can see. So if you're wondering what this is the controller that I use for my second brake lights. It's a little remote that I actually could change the setting of what blinking option I want for when I put the brake lights. You may not have this, so don't worry about that part. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove this piece off the way. It's just a little bracket right there. And actually, I don't even know why this bracket. If I didn't have this on there, I don't know why this bracket would be there. I guess maybe to just. So I'm just gonna put this off to the side. Now we're left with our locking mechanism, which is right here. Okay, so that brace that goes over here is just a brace to keep this little metal tab in place. This is your locking mechanisms for your seat. So when you put your seat down, it actually corresponds with this little loop right here. So when you put your seat in, this is how it looks like. It goes and it snaps into place right there, like so. And then when you pull the cable, it pulls on this little lever, which releases the seat, and therefore you're able to take the seat out. So that's how this locking mechanism works. Go ahead and remove our old cable. So what you can do is we're going to just take it out from this locking thing. Go ahead and pull it out like so, and then we're going to go ahead, and it's be a little bit tricky to take it out, but try to do the best you can. Flip it over to this side and see if you could pop it out. And it's going to be the same thing when we put it back on with the other cable. Go ahead and like so. Once you get it to this point, try to get the little piece out. You may want to use some pliers or something to try to get it out of there. Okay, so what I did to pop that little guy out there, I used needle nose pliers, and I was able to pop it out. All right, so now that we got that one out, we're going to go ahead and grab our other cable, and we are going to install this one on there. And as you could see, the crazy amount of difference there is on length. I believe this is probably, let's actually check how long this one is. I would say it's probably like almost 18 inches long, pretty much right about the 18-inch mark. So that's how long this cable is compared to this little small one. This little small one's around 8.5 inches. All right, so let's go ahead and install this cable in. It really doesn't matter on which end you use, if it's this end or this end, to install it into the little bracket here. So just like as you did when you took out the other one, you want to go ahead and you want to pop this little guy in. So put this part in like so. So push that little guy in there. It's probably a little bit tricky, but just try to do the best you can. So push it in there. Make sure you get the cable in there as best you can. Once you got it in there, it should look like this. So next what we're going to do is we're actually going to flip this over there we go. Because we want to make sure that this piece is going to go on this little hook over there. So let's go ahead and pop that guy in there. There we go. So as you can see, it's already connected. It's already secure there. Already got the little anchor here. Now we're good to go to install the little locking mechanism on our plastic piece here, or on our fiberglass piece. Okay, so now next we're going to do is we have our cover here, and we want to do is we're going to drill a hole over here. It's going to be 1/4. Let me show you that right now. 1/4, and that's the drill bit we're going to be using to make our hole in this little indentation here. And what that's going to do, once we're done doing the hole, we're going to put our bolt through and we're going to secure it with the screws. So here is the screws that we're going to be using for this part of the installation. It's a 6mm metric screw, and if you want to know the size or the length of it, it's going to be 4mm. So 4mm in size, in length I mean, at a 6mm metric thread size. So on here, as you can see, I have one spacer and pretty much 3 nuts to tighten it down. So let's go ahead and let's make our hole so we could install this piece, and I can show you what to do next. Okay, so now like I said, this piece over here fits really snug in this area, but it's up to you if you want to put a little bit of glue there. That's totally up to you. I'm not going to put any glue just because obviously we already made the hole here. It's going to correspond with the hole on this bracket. It's going to hold it there on there securely. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to snug it in there. Try to make it as flush as you can to this piece over here. So I would say it's pretty flush there. Okay, now that we got it on there, now let's go ahead and let's put our screw through there. Let's go ahead, get the screw, go ahead and put it through. But before we actually put it all the way through, we're going to grab our spacer. Let's see if we can back it up a little bit. All right, so like I said, before we actually push it all the way through on the bracket, grab our spacer, and then we are going to put that on there. And actually, to make it a little bit easier, we'll just turn this one sideways, that way we have access to it better. Okay, so after you put the spacer, you're going to grab the nut and we're going to thread that in, spin it in all the way, or for the most part almost all the way. It doesn't get all the way for now. Okay, so now once you get that on there, before we get our bracket on there, we're going to grab our other nut with the little spacer already on it, and we're going to also thread that onto, I would say, around there. Okay, now let's go ahead and we're going to put our bracket back on, and we are going to feed it through here. Next, we're going to grab our other bolt and we're just going to go ahead and tighten it down. So just make sure that you have it pretty flush. So you're about there is good. Once you have it flush to your liking, you could just go ahead and you could just start tightening down these bolts, and then you could go ahead and tighten down this other area here. And then you go ahead and tighten on these other parts of the screws. Make sure that you tighten it all the way down to the spacer, and you may want to grab your needle pliers, or you could probably, I think it's in a 10mm open end wrench, and tighten down the bolts. Okay, so this is what it should look like after you're said and done. Your little bolts here, and then you got your key, obviously. And then on the other side, you already have the spacer, you locked it down with the nut, and then on this side you kind of sandwich the two nuts together onto this bracket. So now it's on there secure. It's not going to go anywhere when you turn the key. So now the bracket's on there secure. You don't have to worry about anybody pushing this thing inside because it's held on pretty well. Okay, so now let's go ahead and install this back onto the bike. Actually, before we go and put it back on the bike, we do need to attach this end to the sliding mechanism here. Go ahead and do that. So pretty much what we're gonna do is put this on here like so, and then just snap this part in. Might be a little bit tricky, but just try to do the best you can because it is a new cable. And if you need to, you could go ahead and use your pliers. Use our pliers to snap this in place. So this is how it looks like once you get it back on there, and then we got the little thing that's gonna slide this out like that. Okay, so now let's go to the bike and install this back on. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and push this in from the bottom. Want to make sure you have plenty of room and that the cable is not going to be kinked anywhere. So you want to make sure you have a smooth, I would say, transition for the cable itself. Probably feed it through this end of the bike so it kind of, you know, be a smooth transition in that direction. Okay, so now that we already got it fed through here, you go ahead and just put you don't have to worry about putting the screws on there for now. But what we're gonna do is we have our bracket here that's gonna go like so. Okay, once you get it like so, now what we're gonna do is we're going to go ahead and feed it through the bottom here. Make sure you're careful, especially if you have any wires in place. And then we're gonna have it come out on these holes right here. Make sure you take your time. It is a little bit tricky. It is a little bit tight in this area, so just try to do the best you can. Okay, once you get it on there, you have the bolts already sticking out. So let me zoom in so you guys can see. Okay, once you get that part there, you want to go ahead and grab your 10mm nut and go ahead and tighten it down. Okay, so you grab your 10mm and then just go ahead and tighten down the bolts. Now before you go ahead and put your seat down, you want to make sure you test out the lock. But before we do that too, we want to make sure that we have our locking mechanism secure. You don't want to just have it dangling there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our little piece over here and make sure it's not getting pinched by anything. So then go ahead and put the screws there. It's going to be 2 screws here and 2 screws here on the other side. So let's go ahead and put those pieces on. Okay, so we want to make sure that the key is actually going to move the little lever that's in there. So let's go ahead. We got our Yamaha key. Put it into the lock and let's turn it. As you can see, even from this distance, you zoom in a little bit more so you could see it better. When I turn the key, the little thing moves out of the way. And it moves completely out of the way, so we are good to go. Alright, so now let's go ahead and put our, well, we could try actually both. Let's try the fiberglass cowl that it comes with and test it out. So here is the fiberglass cowl, the back seat part. So here is the part that's actually going to go in there, and then this little notch over here is actually just going to go right over here. So let's go ahead and check for fitment on that. Okay, it seems to be it. Let's go ahead and press that in. I don't hear a lock, I mean a little click to know that it's in there. It could be that the piece that this part goes on, it's not long enough. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. It could be that the hole is not big enough. I'm not sure on why it's not clicking in place. So let's remove this and let's actually check out the seats, the passenger side seat, and see if that works. Alright, so we got our passenger side seat, and obviously these hooks actually go onto the frame of the bike. So let's go ahead and slide that in there. There we go. That's the click right there that we were looking for. Okay, so now that's on there secure. Now let's get the key, and there we go. Perfect. It comes out with no problem. Now we have to try to figure out what's going on with the fiberglass seat cowl to see why it's not clicking into place like the original. Okay, upon further inspection of why, I'm going to kind of guess because on the original there's a big hole. On the aftermarket there's just this little tiny hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the hole a little bit more and see if that fixes the problem. If it does, then that's pretty much it, and it should lock in place after that. So I'm going to go ahead and get my Dremel tool tool with a small little sanding wheel and just kind of go little by little, making this hole bigger, testing it out to see if it locks. Once it does lock, I'm not going to sand any more of the material. Here's the Dremel tool I'll be using, and I'm just going to be using this small sanding bit to actually make the hole a little bit bigger on the passenger seat cowl. Okay, after much sanding, as you could see, here it is. Now the hole is a little bit bigger, and it's functioning pretty well. So let me show you guys. So now that when I put it on here, I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that everything's lined up in there. It is a little bit tricky to get it on there, but once you get it on there, let's go ahead and push it in, wait for the snap. Okay, it's on there. I'm not sure if you heard the snap or not. So it's on there. Now when I put the key in there, thing is that I'm afraid to sand any more of the material down because I don't want to break it. When I turn the key, it still doesn't want to do it. So the trick for this one would be to press it down, turn the key, and then it comes off. On the under part over here, we're going to go ahead and put the little plastic screws that go here. So one right there, one over here, and one over here, and it's the same thing on the other side. Okay, now for you guys that actually did the second blinking flashing brake lights, if you wanted to, you could actually still go ahead and put that piece back on there. I'm not going to do it yet because I still have to paint this rear tail end, but I'm just going to go ahead and I could actually just stick it on there. So it still has a little bit of stickiness to it, and actually it fits really well, like right around here. So just a temporary look, you can see that I'm able to still use my secondary blinking flashing brake light. So if you guys did the same, you could also do the same here and still use your strips, and you could do it on both sides. Alright, so now let's go ahead and let's put our seat back on. But before we do that, to put our seat back on, we need to remove our rear cowl, and then we'll also have to remove this piece off of the bike to install our seat. Once we install the seat, we'll put our two 8mm bolts back on, and then we'll put this piece on, and then we'll put our cowl back on. So let's go ahead and do that. Alrighty guys, so that concludes the installation of the R1 tail for the R3. As you can see, it's looking amazing. I love it. Couldn't believe that it took me this long to finally find the R1 tail for the R3. As you can see, little ventilation holes over there. That looks really cool. Now let's check it out from the back. It's looking super awesome. Actually, I want to see how it's going to look like with the tail light on. So I'm going to go ahead and put the key in, and let's see how it looks like with the tail light on. Oh, there we go. That is super awesome. With this TST Industries tail light, it definitely brings it to a more modern look with the tail cover. Definitely a more modern looking bike, I would say. Looking good here on the sides. As I bump into everything in my little storage unit. Now, the only thing I'll probably be doing would be, as soon as I paint my tail cover, I'll probably paint the little screw tooth to match the setting there. So, yep, that's pretty much it. And I just couldn't help myself on installing the R1 tank cover, the new one, as you can see. Here it is, guys. Hopefully you guys saw the review video of the R1 tank cover. And then also I got the race fairings. I already installed those. So now I'm just kind of giving you an overview of the whole thing. I've already put it together. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, guys. If you did, smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification button so you guys could be up to date with the latest videos once I post them onto the channel. And thank you for watching. Oh, and by the way, before we end this video, I'll have a link in the description below on where I purchased this R1 tail. And don't forget to enter the code AC2018 so you guys could get the special incentives of getting your tail painted and with express shipping. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. I can't wait to get this bike up on the road to get people's reactions on when they see this bike. Take care, guys.